This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
August, yeah.
With June weather, right?
Yeah, I know,
Finally.
it kinda got
So
chilly, I was
nice.
like, wow. Thought it was gonna be warmer today than it actually is. So, welcome Ellen, welcome Louise. And I guess we'll just go around and just give our names again, just so everybody can. I'm Tracy Eller, I'm the chair of the committee.
My name is Madhawk Frenshaw. I'm the
Treasurer?
secretary.
Or secretary.
Yeah.
I'm Pasqualina. I'm the Arts and Culture Program Director.
I'm Ted Perch. I'm just me.
Felicia Jadzak.
Steve Colacelli.
Ellen Coteen. Louise Friedel.
Okay, great. Awesome. So, do we have any public speak? If you wanna talk a little bit, or do
Well,
we
it's on the
wanna,
agenda.
it's on the agenda, so we can,
Yep, that's good.
okay, I
We'll
didn't know
wait.
if you wanted to do any public speak before.
Nope.
So we'll just, get started then. Did everybody get a chance to look over the July minutes?
They're here. I thought I made 6 copies, but there's 1 copy.
Motion to approve.
Okay, great. Anybody wanna second that?
Seconded.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
All right. So you wanna start with the programming updates?
Yeah, and let's share that.
Yeah.
So Art Walk tends to get quiet in the summer, though we had 2 pretty well-attended art walks the last 2 months. Jean-Pierre Passion Big Red Frame had a group show in July, and ECA had a showing of artists from Riverside, the organization, that had been scheduled last year. So there were quite a lot of people just in terms of being out and about and coming to Art Walk. I heard great things on Cottage Street as well. I think Eastworks continues to be much quieter. I know not all of the regularly participating venues participated in either July or August in Eastworks. So I want to continue to put attention there in some way, shape, or form, whether it's like adding things or reassessing things or something. We have increased marketing efforts. We've, done all the things we said we would do, and there still tends to be a good turnout in Old Town Hall, a good turnout in the Cottage Street Cultural District, and a quieter turnout in Eastworks. So I wanted to give that update. Related to that, Tracy and Maud and I met recently about the ECA Invitational Show, which we'll talk about in a second. And because we had been the selection committee for the last 2 years for ECA Gallery, now's the time where we do an open call to artists. We talked about doing that the first week of September, right after Labor Day. We will have our open call to select artists for 2025. We would like to do group shows at ECA Gallery in both July and August. Like group shows in the summer really do help because they draw more people. Everyone's inviting their respective communities and families. And so that's something we had talked about. We'll update the language to really encourage applications by individual artists and curators for solo, 2-person and group shows. So that will be reflected there. And then I also wanted to reintroduce a conversation related to Art Walk. We had talked last year about having a marketing and events intern. Our internship description got widely distributed and we didn't have any takers. And so it really is important, as we all know, to like do as much marketing as possible, not just for Art Walk, but for all of our events. And having someone doing regular posts on social media is a good thing. Having someone attend Art Walk to gather documentation that can be used throughout the month is really important also. And I can't remember if I mentioned in one of these meetings or not, but a couple of months ago, yes, I did talk about it here. A woman named, I'm gonna forget her. Ava, she had first contacted you. She's from Amherst, the bid. Anyway, this wonderful person with a lot of, who's a grad student at UMass, who's interning at the Amherst bid, who's in conversations about revitalizing their monthly art walk and then deciding how to go about it, was making phone calls to other folks around the valley who do art walk and wanted to hear about what's going well, what have been some challenges, da-da-da-da-da. So we met, she's great, we had a wonderful conversation, and then I asked her if there were an opportunity at ECA for like a very few hours a week, you know, I proposed it as like September through December and then a reassessment type of thing. Would she be interested? And we met in person. She sent me a resume. We had like an interview. She's really great. She had lived in Easthampton. Now she's living in Northampton, but like is very familiar with our little world and was totally up for that. So I, you know, have this internship. I have the internship overview, but what I was thinking for this person, whether it's her or somebody else, 12 hours a month at $20 an hour, that's $960 between September and December. And then, because it's our 20th anniversary year in the coming year, I thought if it's going well, maybe we can revisit this conversation and do it for the coming year attached to that. We have funding, we have a $10,000 check from River Valley Co-op that I didn't need to use a dime of for Cultural Chaos. It will be going toward Porch Fest, but there will be money left over. And I would like to propose that we take $960 of that and hire a very part-time marketing person, assistant. We would work together, there'd be common language, you know, like all of those things. She'd be very supported. But I think the help would be really great, and that's an area that's really doable. So I would like to put forth, we can revisit this conversation, or we can have a discussion.
No, I'll make a motion that we hire whatever the language is, I make that motion.
Second.
Okay.
I do have something I wanna say.
Well, now's the time for discussion. That's the order.
Just a short
That is actually the correct order of
Short
things.
discussion. I'm all in favor of having someone. Can we broaden the $900 though? Can we kind of like vote that if, you know, like that it's gonna go, assuming that it goes well, that we will continue? Can we just go ahead and do that now, or do we have to?
I would say, and this is just, and people can chime in, I think because we can do it, like she'll learn how she likes it, we'll learn how she likes it, but we'll also learn what her strengths are, we'll be getting to know her. So she'll be hearing a lot about the 20th anniversary. Like there can be some things, there's
Yeah.
plenty of money. I think we should have that discussion if we're gonna be hiring for 2025 in the conversation with our budget discussion,
Well, that was
which
gonna be
would
my
come in
question.
like
Yeah.
November.
So my question is related to the budget because I don't have it in front of me, but I remember last December, we voted on the budget and there was a line item that we approved for this role. I think
It
it was
was
more than
560,
960, wasn't it?
I thought it was $500 for the intern.
Was that how much it was?
We were gonna we had discussed it sort of like a part-time person, and then I talked to Jeff Bagg, said we needed to talk to HR. And for whatever reason at the time, we were encouraged to go the route of internship. I don't know why,
Right.
frankly.
Is it possible at some point to find the actual budget to
Yeah.
confirm? I think that'd be helpful, because if it was more than 500 or 900, then I like Tracy's point, which is I think it's challenging to get anything done 3 hours a week. So I like the idea of having a time-bound project essentially between now and the end of the year for this person to work to see all the things you said. But it's, like, you sort of like you get what you pay for. And like if we have even like 2 more hours a week, I think it would just
Great.
be
We
beneficial.
have
It would be helpful to know like what we approved
Well,
last
that's
year.
what I'm getting at, like that we don't have to limit it to like 12 hours a month.
Yeah.
You know, that if we need more time, if we need 20 hours a month.
Well, what do
or whatever,
we
you
need?
know.
Because the money is there. I can look to see. I don't want to spend time pulling it up now because if I search budget, I
No,
might
like
end
something
up-
offline, but
Yeah.
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 Well, assuming that the person we find wants to do more hours or do longer, extend this project, assume that's a go. What do we want to see from this
Yeah.
person? Like, what kind of metric are we looking for? So how will we know if they are successful?
I think that Art Walk is a big deal. And we have, for all of our one-off events, they tend to be very successful in terms of being well-run and well-attended. Like any one-off thing we do is like been great. Art Walk is like the harder, it's like a monthly thing and it's like, it's like we're out of rhythm is what it feels like. From my memories of pre-pandemic, it's like there used to just be this rhythm and it was different. Like not just from ECA, but from attendees. So I think in terms of what we want to see, like what are the goals? I think we can, so like I always look to see how many people look at our newsletter, look at our Facebook and Instagram, because those are like the only actually measurable things with numbers. And so we can see like month to month how many people are just being engaged there. I think that's actually very meaningful, like as separate from who comes. We can also look to see our numbers for Art Walk. And just from a like the feeling of like, is the room full? Is the room not full? Is the room empty? When I first started here, we had a clicker in Old Town Hall. It was a number that's like only one little glimpse of Art Walk. Like, so there are ways to track, but you don't know, like, if that person also went into Oxbow, like, if we all had clickers, like, if there was a clicker in every district or whatever felt reasonable, it was never a really accurate, like, an actually accurate number. We also used to do things where, like, people would get a wristband. Like, there are ways to, like, how many stickers did we give out that night? Don't give a sticker to someone who already had a sticker. Like, not everyone got a sticker. Anyway, it felt a little bit like not, it was something we chose not to continue to do because you could kind of feel, is it well attended? Is it not well attended? It's like not as perfect, but because it was never exact, it felt a little like a lot of energy into something that was like, but I think attendance at Art Walk is like the goal. And so kind of paying attention to that. It tends to be better attended in the fall. And yeah, the radio ads have been going.
Do you feel?
And I hear from people like, oh, I heard but like, I think it's worth continuing to do. I think it's good to kind of have that repetition. Yeah.
Would their sole focus be on Art Walk? Because I'm speaking to, I'm kind of questioning that a little bit to your point, because I basically have this job in Cummington. It's super part-time. I do comms and all the marketing and comms and stuff like that, as well as events and things like that. I have 6 hours a week, and that is impossible to actually fit it into 6 hours. And it's for the Cummington Cultural District, all the program areas. It's web, it's socials, it's newsletter, it's, press releases and all that kind of jazz. But, it's tricky to fit it into that timeline if you're talking about also having relationships with partners and things like that. But I don't know how that's parsed between like you're doing the spots on the radio, right? So there's a little bit of that too, whereas I own more of it, but 6 hours was tricky just in terms of thinking
Well,
about
that's
the
a great
hours.
point though, Maud, because maybe it might be helpful if you have like a job description to share with Pascalina and basically say like, here's what I can barely get done in 6 hours. And then maybe that would help you parse out what is feasible in whatever the time limit is. Because I think to the point that like we've been bringing up is no matter what the person ends up working on, it's gonna be important to be very specific about what do they do and how do we measure success. Because like what you just shared is important around how it used to be, but in the context of an intern, it's kind of irrelevant unless you want the intern to come up with new ideas for how to count people at Art Walk or interview people who go to Art Walk to find out why do they not go to Art Walk anymore, right? So like I want us to just be like really clear about what the intern does so that it's not just, oh, they're like feeling the vibe, which is important, but like you can do that. So like what, if we're gonna pay for an intern, like what do they actually do? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, so I'm sorry if that was not clear. I wasn't saying that they would be seeing if it's well attended or not. I think that we all understand if it's well attended or not. My feeling for this person for the next few months is really help with posting on social media. I would like to continue to do all of the newsletters, and I would like for them to, and I will continue to do press releases, like all the relationship stuff. I will just be very clear, like I personally am not in a place to bring someone into this organization in that way. This is like an assistant.
Yeah.
Doing social media. And I think, I'll just mention it because it's related to this. So I've been talking with Bronwyn, I've been talking with Lenny Applequist. Our website is like, needs to be upgraded to Jupiter. I don't know all these things, like a software platform is the word I'm learning. I was told it would be done by the end of this week. But we've been having this conversation for a long time. So it needs to happen. And once that happens, there's a bottleneck right now with what Bronwyn can do because this hasn't been done. So based on, I am trusting, my feeling is that by our next meeting, it will be done. Once that's done and the website is more, or you guys also, like things are not, there's like a lot of glitches. Perhaps I'd bring this person into the back end of our website,
Yeah.
doing the calendar, keeping those things, the Thursdays to the Saturdays, like having that person be a part of that could be great. But for me, the primary thing is like social media, like interacting with the community and just getting the word out and coming to Art Walk and documenting and then using those things to encourage people to continue to come visit the galleries throughout the month. Like I'm thinking real clear and very like limited in terms of what the initial tasks are. I also like to do a little trial, see how it's all working, and then, you know, after the October Art Walk, have a conversation about the coming year. And then we would all talk and add, you know, how to kind of grow and scale the job. I'm fine for doing like 5 hours a week for this person. That, I mean, I can do some math right now. But I would like to keep it small scale in terms of their time and also in terms of our expectations getting started.
And to be clear, this is not an intern, this is just a, I mean, does it matter if
I
you
think
call
it
it an
would be like
intern
an
or-
assistant.
Yeah,
I don't think of it as an internship, but
there's just different expectations with an internship, I think, right? In terms of
Getting credit.
getting credit and all that.
yeah, I think that we'd be hiring this person outside of her capacity as a student.
I just wanted to just,
I mean, I guess
Yeah.
that I don't know,
Yeah.
but I don't think of it as an internship. I think we're moving away from the internship and we're looking to hire.
Yeah, not to be complicating, you mentioned earlier HR said internship is
Oh,
better.
I've talked to HR. No, so I talked to HR like 2 months ago about this and said blah, 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 blah. It didn't work out. I'd really like to hire someone part-time and like it would be very limited. It falls below every number that requires, you know, like so far away from.
Like no benefits or anything like that.
Yeah, like this is not getting anywhere near anything that would warrant a very different kind of conversation. And she was like, great.
Okay.
So I don't know what was going on and I had never spoke to her directly. Jeff, I don't know what happened and I was surprised. So, yeah, so that's all been, thank you, that's all been long cleared.
great, perfect. Anything else on Art Walk that we?
And the other thing is I kind of like to keep the hours for the month rather than the week because it's really gonna fluctuate. So, and like, they're doing a lot of this work remotely, like I would like to meet with them once a week just to have like a check-in and stay connected and, but I just thought that might be more accurate and like supportive for them based on the work that they're doing, so this would be 12 hours a month, so 20 hours a month, so that's $400 a month, so $1,600 from the River Valley,
Okay.
which was not included, I don't think, in our budgeting, so it's like.
I make a motion to vote yes for the extra 1,600.
Second.
Aye.
Yay.
All right.
Great, thanks.
All right. Got the ECA invitation.
Yeah, so next up is the ECA Invitational. Would either of you like to speak to that?
Do you want to go?
Sure.
Well,
I'm sorry, this role is September through December?
Mm-hmm.
So the ECA Invitational last year, we organized an invitational that was kind of in response to some of the divisiveness that was happening, and it was really about building bridges. It was called A Cross Between, and it featured 2 artists working in different media, one a photographer, one a sculptor, an installation artist. It was activated with a dance performance. It brought folks through in that way. We're similarly in yet another moment that is just a lot of big conversations around the arts, our responsibilities to kind of maintaining arts communities, especially here in Easthampton, what our roles are to one another. So we talked a lot about that idea as a foundation of, again, being in conversation with what the currents that we're in, and speaking to our context. And so we reached out to a local artist named Jeff Casper, whose work is really centered on these ideas of asking big driving questions around what our responsibilities are to one another. He's often engaged in conversations around disability justice and hi. Papa's here. Papa's here. Sorry. Timing. And he's does a lot of advocacy work as well. He's an educator, he's a publisher, he's a writer, he's a curator. He's really interested in how we connect with one another and develop and hold these conversations. So he was really interested in bringing some of his work into this context of the ECA gallery. And also some of the other ideas that we had talked about kind of constellating with that, which are kind of more expansive. So one of those was potentially having a conversation that featured a few different local arts entities that are really interested in artist advocacy and looking at the future and developing models. Thanks, Sean. And things like that. So, there's some really great, innovative responses that artists have had, whether that's the tenants union, association. There's a local co-op, THIC, that's the Heavy Culture Cooperative. There's, a few different arts collectives as well inside of one cottage. There's a few different things going on. There's also a for-profit business called Win-Win that is integrates artists and artisans and has a model where there's a slice of their profit that goes back into social justice movements. So there's a few different things around what's our role in the arts to each other, to broader things that are happening, and finding solidarities. So that was something that we were thinking of exploring as well as that conversation, and other things as well, but that's just some of the things that we're sprinkling in there and thinking about moving forward into.
And we're meeting with Jeff on Thursday morning.
Yeah.
And the ECA invitational is for the month of October.
Well, some of that segues as well with the Easthampton Futures Project, right? Mm-hmm. So, we're thinking of this conversation around arts models as a program, and Jeff was interested in seeing if there was a role for him in that program as well. We were thinking about there are different collective models or advocacy models or things like this, from arts unions to all sorts of different models that are outside of Easthampton, but maybe there's a mix happening within that conversation as a panel. But also a great, in terms of context and framing, we have the Easthampton Futures Project, which speaks to so many of these same things around what is our role, especially as a municipal entity, to this work and facilitating, fostering these communities moving forward.
Yeah, so we were thinking of possibly a panel discussion at City Space one night in October, on a weeknight type of thing. And then also toward the end of October, we had talked about doing some kind of presentation of the Easthampton Futures Project, a 5-year check-in to our 10-year plan. and seeing about doing that at the end of October at City Space, kind of as part of this dialogue.
I know, it's really exciting.
Can I just say one thing? I need to leave by 6, so I just wanna, I don't know if there's any flexibility
Sure.
with the,
Yeah.
with the agenda.
Why don't we, is that okay with folks if we jump ahead to Cottage Street? We'll come back to Porch Fest and resume the agenda from there.
Thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, Cottage Street, a lot has happened since our last meeting, and a lot has happened since yesterday, since like a week ago, since like things are really moving. So we have 2 members of Cottage Street here, and I would love to hear from you. We've been talking to artists from specifically Gianna Ugoni and Ellen. An idea has come up about an event for ECA to organize for the end of September that's related to Cottage Street, but it's also beyond Cottage Street, so we want to kind of talk about that a little bit too. So I don't know if there was anything you all wanted to say first, or any updates. There was a meeting with the mayor, like there's been a lot's happening, so I don't know if there's anything you would like to share initially.
I can do a little update and then you can jump in. Basically, nothing good has happened as far as I'm concerned. Riverside is winning. They're responsive to nobody. The mayor had a meeting today with Evan Plotkin, who runs a company called NAI Plotkin, which is a management company that Riverside has engaged to oversee collecting rents and doing repairs and that kind of thing. And when we had a meeting with the mayor a couple of weeks ago that Pascalina was at, as well as Connie Denham, the city councilor, the mayor said that she knows Evan Plotkin and she was arranged a meeting with him. But I don't think I'm not sure where it's gonna go. Basically, they are adamant that it's $15 a square foot, like it or leave it. And a couple of things, we just found out that there's a space on the 5th floor of the building with someone who was, excuse my throat, my voice, that someone was interested in, and we heard it was just rented to Lynn Island's husband. Lynn Island is the CEO of Riverside. So we just heard that it was rented to her husband, which is interesting. Some people are leaving I have not gotten my lease yet. We were supposed to get a lease by August 1st and let them know by September 1st if we were staying or giving 60 days notice to leave. Because they said you'll have at least 30 days to decide. It's whatever today is. You got your lease?
Pardon me?
Did you get your lease?
I have to check still.
Yeah.
I think Tony did, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, most people have gotten the lease. I haven't gotten one yet. Anyway, so a number of people are leaving, and it's just very sad. I mean, from my perspective, Riverside is being hateful, vicious, cruel, awful. They refuse to meet with anybody. They send out an email to all of us saying, you can no longer talk to us directly. They included the city council. The city councilors can't talk to us directly. If you want to talk to anybody, you talk to Evan Plotkin. But which is quite amazing for a local business to tell city councilors that they won't talk to them. So it's such a different ballgame than it's been for over 40 years that it's very sad and it's very enraging both. So, anything else?
Yeah, actually, I just wanted to say, I've had a studio there for a short time compared to most people, 10 years I've been there. And what I've been thinking about a lot is the longevity of artists. We're not trying to work for a year and then get out and do something else. We're trying to look at longevity, and that's part of what we hope, the city can be supportive of. But I'm gonna be priced out of Cottage Street in 2 years. I know that. It's gonna be at $1,000 a month for me at that point. And I can't do it there. So I've started to look around. I can't move immediately. Our shop has heavy equipment. And we're pretty committed to getting some work done that we had planned on. I still can't believe that their first proposal to us was 18 a square foot, which was a 62% increase for me. And I think other people were, 150 more?
Yeah.
And it's almost like I feel that they proposed 18 a square foot so 15 might feel acceptable. But with it going up 3% every year, which is, usual and understandable, it will raise it, start at 15, the next year is going to be 15.5, the next year is going to be 16, the next will be 16.5. So soon they will be up to the 18. I agree. I think the hardest thing is we've ended up feeling like our committee wanted to reach out with one voice instead of 90, 100 of us talking at them. And they just made statements like, we don't talk to tenants associations. And it's like, they're just making it up kind of. And I feel, and many people feel like all their steps they've taken have to put barriers between people. Like, this is Riverside, this is you. And we're not gonna talk to you. This is what we have to do. And when I wrote my last letter to them in July, I said, we're getting a 36% increase. We'd appreciate 1 year to step to the amount you want. And I got no reply. And there is at least 4 letters that got no reply from our entire group to Riverside's administration. And I ended up feeling like they were hiding things too, because it's like, no, you can't talk to the board, no, you can't talk to the board. And then we found out that they've separated the board from any responsibility of the building, but they didn't tell us that.
Yeah.
So we've been not even barely need to know. And so I won't go on, but I agree with Ellen. And it's interesting because it's not one person thinking this. It's up to 80 people having the same response to what's happened.
Yeah.
So
The board is responsible. It's a not-for-profit 501c3, so the board is responsible for the entire building, if they understand that or not. But they sent us one lease, and there were so many questions that they've said, tear up that lease, we'll send you a new lease. So the new lease came out over the last couple of weeks, and there's 2 clauses in the new lease. One of the clauses says, you may not use the word Riverside in anything. You can only say One Cottage Street. You cannot associate yourself in any way with Riverside. The other clause says, you may not in any way denigrate Riverside, the board. If you threaten us in any way, if you threaten our donors, our board, you'll be evicted, basically. So it's basically a gag order. And none of us have ever seen anything like, it's a commercial real estate lease. No one's ever seen a gag order in a commercial real estate lease. So basically, it tells us that our advocacy campaign has been successful, that they've had to include all these things. And we're having a lawyer review the lease, but it's unbelievable.
the other thing in the lease that struck me was where they said they would not pay for any insurance claims whatsoever, that they all had to be our insurance claims. And someone's had an example of this where the person delivering to her got their hand injured, so it's gonna require surgery.
I think that was taken care of.
Yeah, did get okay, good, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no,
But to read that they're not, they said even if they're responsible for the damage, they're not to be financially responsible for it. So.
And they require insurance coverage that will be at least $500 an artist, that they've increased it so much. And they're requiring the first month, the last month secured. It's just all of the requirements. So basically they want us, the message is, we don't care about you, get out of this building, so.
Well, and the other thing regarding that is I didn't realize, and it does make sense that your security and your, first and last would go up, but for us, then it means our rent is gonna be doubled for the first 4 months. Not 36%, but double, because we have to pay that deposit also. And that's when it starts to hurt, 30 sounds unreasonable until you're faced with 50 or 60.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
Do you have a number, so of the 80, do you have a sense yet of how many, I know many people have left and are leaving. Do you have a sense of how many people are staying versus not staying?
The majority are staying. They came down from requiring a 3-year lease to a 1-year lease. So a number of people feel they can't get out in a few months, so that they would sign a one-year lease September 1st, but they expect to leave after that, at the end of the 1 year. I'll be leaving because my rent would go up over 60%, I can't afford it. Plus, it's such a toxic environment there now, I don't wanna be there, but, so I think the majority will stay, and they've agreed to a 60-day opt-out after the 1 year. We've asked for the 60, we've asked for a 60-day opt-out after 6 months, but we don't know if they'll get that. And as I said, today the mayor met with Evan Plotkin, so I don't know if she made any progress with him or not, but, so I don't know. And the latest lease was so insulting and offensive that some people who plan to stay for a year are saying they don't know if they can even tolerate staying for a year.
Yeah.
So I don't think we'll really know for another 6 months, but, at least 10 people are in the process, have left or are in the process of leaving, and more will be leaving.
Yeah, there may be 10 more in the next 60 days, because that's our notice time.
Right.
And then a number of people have said to me, a year is all I can take, so. And, they're saying that because they can't move immediately.
Yeah.
They have commitments. I did talk to a commercial realtor, and he says, yeah, usually it will take you a year to find a good commercial rental.
So this wonderful 40-year-long community has just been torn apart. And again, I think it has terrible implications for the city as a whole, and for the Cottage Street Cultural District, which is, largely, partially based on that, so.
Yeah, largely, I would say, still.
Yeah, so that's the update. I don't know if you have any questions about it, clearly up.
And one of the things affecting the artists staying is they said they want to stay and see what it's going to look like in a year. Mm-hmm. If it's only, half of the artists left, that might affect people to not stay.
So many people, artists moved to the building because of the community and because of open studios. When we have meetings, I just say, I moved up here from Texas because of Cottage Street Studios. This woman lived in Belchertown for 20 years. She's been planning when she could retire, she would move to Easthampton to be in the community. So all of these stories are just, it's really sad.
Another outcome of all of this is after that community meeting that most all of us were there, I don't think you were there, Amy Bennett, the facilitator from Art Stays Here from Boston, I connected with her that night because I wanted to learn more about what we can do as a municipality, like what are our existing models. Like she's done a lot of work all over the state for years now. And so we began a weekly meeting. I invited Tracy to join us. So that started last Tuesday. And we'll be meeting each week kind of until we decide not to. Just to get a sense of what kinds of things we can be doing. The main focus of last week's meeting was in response to an idea that artist Jana Ugoni from Cottage Street, she was one of the artists who did the Cottage Street sculpture up the street, the new public sculpture, had an idea for an event. Oh, thanks. On the pond, and it's kind of evolving. So I will just say that all these pieces are moving really quickly. And so Tracy and I have been talking and kind of planning, but we all have to have a conversation about whether or not this is something ECA wants to do. But we didn't want to wait until tonight to get a yay or a nay and then start scrambling around planning an event. So the idea is it would be a weekend-long installation and a one-night only kind of a community event. And it's certainly related to Cottage Street, but we're looking broader kind of at the impacts and the future of the city of Easthampton, and to have an event called Keep the Arts Afloat. And it's a call to artists, and everyone is invited and encouraged to make a boat or a floating sculpture, and there are specs. We've like worked out all the like dimensions and the this and the that. Is this that meeting? This is that meeting. And having speakers on the pond, on the boardwalk, and we're looking at Friday, September 20th from 5:30 to 7. We timed it with the sun setting at 6:31, and the rain date would be the following night. I did go ahead and get approval from the Parks Department because that's their territory, and I didn't want to put another minute into this if he just said no. He said, sounds great. And I also got the mayor's approval because I didn't want to move forward, obviously, without it. So, but we can't move forward without, a discussion and an agreement here that that's something we want to do. I've been feeling like we've had a lot of conversations about, over the last couple months anyway, about like, well, what can we do? Like, there are definitely limitations to what ECA can and cannot do because of the municipal nature of our organization, but that is something we can do. Cottage Street is also, well, to my knowledge, the last I understood is there was also discussion around a fundraiser, and we cannot, as a municipal entity, we cannot fundraise for a non-municipal entity. We cannot spread the word about someone else's fundraiser. Like, there are real, and it's a very slippery slope, and I'm personally in favor of rules like that because it could just go wild.
Riverside has already warned the city, back off. You don't want to get sued by Plotkin or anybody else because you're innocently wandering around trying to get support. It could be, it could be bad.
So hold
It's already
on.
been.
I just want to, what I'm getting at is we have been very clear what we can and cannot do. So we can organize a community event. We can ask people to make boats. We can set up some speakers and like have light refreshments on the pond, but we cannot be part of a fundraiser. And we can't share the fundraiser, but artists from Cottage Street could utilize that platform in a way to, spread the word about the things that are important to them.
Just can't
The
ask for
idea,
money.
can I just jump in?
Just can't ask for money.
We can't ask for money, and so we're not. So like that's just been made clear.
Can I just jump in? This event is supposed to be a celebration. It is not a protest in any way. It's a celebration of the arts and artists in Easthampton, and it's a community event. Anybody can make a boat. There's going to be like little candles or luminaires on each boat. So at dusk, it will be this really pretty kind of lovely thing. The idea was possibly that One Cottage Street would have a table with information on One Cottage Street. How can you help One Cottage Street? There would be a website. And that is how people get into the website and get into a possible fundraising aspect of it. So it will be there, but it will not be there, and that kind of sort of way. But it is a celebration. This is to support artists in Easthampton, and I think it will be a beautiful event.
So you're saying, when Jana first came up with the idea was to sell the boats, and you're saying that cannot be part of this?
We met with Jana. It was kind of a spontaneous, the three of us met, and we were talking about the fundraising component and that there are ways around that so that everyone's, abiding by the guidelines. But we also just talked about, like, what about that idea of, like, auctioning off the boats or, like, having them be art objects? And just from, like, an event planning and organizing standpoint, she also, like, it's like that turns it into, that's like a much bigger lift, trying to get people to buy sculptures that are made by So that
So the
that
answer
got
is no, basically.
the answer. Yeah, it just evolved
Yep, no, that's
to
fine.
like
Just want to be clear.
yeah.
Yeah, we decided that was just a lot of, we needed to do this sooner versus later, and that's another big administrative.
And that would get tricky
Yeah,
Okay.
with like then it's like that would have to come to that. Then it couldn't be a fundraiser.
No, I accept
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
but I just wanted to be
Yeah,
perfectly
yes, that did evolve.
Okay. And Ted, when you say Riverside's told the city to back off, I'm sure, in what way did you?
Well, you mentioned that they,
And they
the
said-
city council, you can't mention,
Right, you can't, yeah,
you don't want to get, whatever.
yeah, okay, yeah.
I might regret asking this question, but keep the arts afloat. It sounds different to me than like celebration. I like the idea, keep the arts afloat, but keep the arts afloat,
That
there's
sounds like a
some
fundraiser.
advocacy. There's some, like, we all know what we mean by that. So I just feel like if it's a I just think, I like the name, I like that there's a little bit, but I also want to, when you were like, it's a celebration, I'm like, that's different, like, that's a different message, and how
Well,
do
you could
we
reframe
feel-
it. I mean, you could even just reframe the order. You could say something like art floats Easthampton or Easthampton floats on art or stuff like that to turn it into more of the point that we have talked about a lot, which is that art is essential to Easthampton. Because if we can't fundraise, then I think we have to be really clear about like, why are we doing this event? Because what I'm hearing and my personal thoughts is I do think it's, I think it's like the short term, long term, right? Short term, if we can't fundraise, it's not gonna help you. Long term, if we can
Well,
talk
they'll
about.
be fundraising.
Well, they can,
Yeah.
that's separate,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
But like long term, if we say this is an opportunity for us as an organization to highlight issues around art, future issues, highlight that there's communities in Easthampton, meet artists, things like that. And if it's gonna be like, maybe it's something we do more than once, like then I think that's a great thing, but we have to be super clear about it. And, like, could it be if we're doing the boats, like maybe like, could you say, hey, you don't want to make your boat, buy a pre-made boat that we've made? Like, I don't know if that's skirting too close to the fundraising thing, but like, I think one of the things that we had talked about after the last meeting that was held in the Blue Room is the next day we went to Food Truck Fridays, and it was very well attended, which it generally tends to be. And we were discussing between ourselves, we were like, do people here like know about the meeting that was held last night? Because they're very different populations in terms of just looking and seeing who is at these events. And we talked to a couple of our friends afterwards, and we were like, did you know about the stuff that's happening? And I mean, I'll talk about it in the ECC meeting, but in the ECC meeting, I actually brought this up, and almost no one at ECC knew about it. So I think there is a very real reality that we are operating in a bubble, because for us, we're like, this is huge, but for a huge part of Easthampton, it is not on their radar. So I think if we think about this event from that lens, saying, let's just talk about it so that like a larger community is aware, I think the education angle is really helpful. And again, it's the short-term, long-term. We can't like save necessarily, but we can funnel people to your platform, and then you can decide what you want to do with that, and if that's a fundraiser or something else. And then long-term, we can start a discussion around how can we prevent things like this from happening in the future? Because
that's our
these are
big
people
job.
who can vote on stuff like this in the future, or, community backlash, or, community advocacy, or whatever it might be that we want to highlight. So that's kind of what I was thinking with that. I like the celebration
I do
angle.
like the arts floats Easthampton, because it's true.
Yeah.
It really is.
It really is
wow.
true. I love
And
that.
I actually do, like, most of the people I do know in Easthampton, that's one of the critical, essential pieces is Easthampton. Like a lot of people have said to me, I don't want to move to Holyoke. I don't want to move to Amherst. I want to live and work in Easthampton. So I think having that in the event, I think would be really good.
Yeah, in terms of the long term, Amy Bennett and I did take a tour of the massage school building.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And she's connected to two organizations in Boston that do buy up buildings to maintain affordable artist spaces. Now, and she wants to continue with that, so she'll continue with that. But she's also looking at buildings in Holyoke, and we've been in touch with the building in Florence. I mean, so large numbers of artists in Easthampton could be moving out as a result of this experience.
They really can. And that is something that Tracy and I also talked with Amy about, because we're like, long-term, like that massage school, right? The positioning, it's kind of like welcome to downtown, you're right near city space, blah, blah, blah. And we're like, what if, like, I'm like, who are these investors you keep talking about? Like, what if we all had a conversation? What if the ECA offices were in there? What if there was a gallery? What if there were studios? Maybe not 80, but like a number of them, and that they were truly affordable. And we were involved like there are all sorts of models where like, a small percentage of rents could triple fund what we're making now. You know what I mean? Like there could be, and so Amy was very excited about that idea, and the idea that Easthampton's so small, things are very possible when people are reachable in a way that it's like different than like looking at Boston, like what can we do? And so, like who knows how all of that will go, but I mean, thinking long term, I think we all understand, like it's just dominoes. It's just total dominoes. And
I think the angle of raising public awareness is really important.
Yeah.
And and this is maybe like a separate but related conversation. Like I am curious, and I'm sure you've been thinking and looking into this. I am curious if this impacts the future of having Cottage Street be designated a cultural district.
it will not, because the requirements have to do with how many cultural, like arts and cultural entities are within a certain amount of square feet of each other. The Button Building counts because they have the Prindle School. Like I've already right
so
away.
it's not gonna really
I
impact.
ran the cultural district math, and I'm like, we're fine. We've got like Oxbow, Mount
Well, I mean,
Tom's,
it's a double-edged sword, right? Because it's good that we're fine, but almost would it be better if it weren't fine? Because then again, if you think about public awareness, if you had an op-ed or an article in the Gazette saying Easthampton loses cultural district because of this thing. That's huge,
I don't mean
right?
to
And I'm not saying we want that, but
I'm not saying it doesn't matter. To the question, does it? It just technically doesn't.
Yeah, which is, again, like I said, it's
Yeah,
good.
but I think
the public
absolutely.
awareness angle is important.
My
for this.
whole thing at that meeting, there were, I don't know how many artists were here, 20 something. Myself and Connie Denham were here, and the mayor was here, and so ECA in 2019 did a study, I don't think everyone around this table knows, where we partnered with grad students from the UMass Landscape Architecture Regional Planning Program and the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, and they did a study where because I asked them to, I include this in a lot of my proposals. I wanted to know what percentage of Easthampton businesses were considered quote unquote creative, according to national standards in planning. And they counted 413 local businesses in the city of Easthampton. That included many businesses, and including artist studios inside mill buildings that were running businesses, that were registered as running businesses, and it was 51% of the 430. That's huge. That's beyond most local, regional, national averages of any city of any size. So that's very significant. If we look at these artist studios as 80 small businesses, that's almost 20, and the numbers have changed since 2019. I don't know what they are right now, but that's 50% 15% of our local businesses, like, that's a very different headline in the Gazette.
And like that could be like it could be great to have like a poster at the event on the pond with some of these numbers to again just like drive home how significant a shift this is going to be or this is. Because for like the average person who's like going to Art Walk or going to eat out or whatever, it's if they're not plugged in or if they don't know folks or if they're not directly involved, it's like not on their radar. But we have to think about like how can we really like craft the message to get it across like why this is so important and so significant. So like numbers like that would be to say like, 15% of businesses are impacted by this thing that's happened or whatever it is,
Yeah.
right?
And like, yeah, considering open studios, like how many people come to the district from those 2 day or the 2 events a year alone? Yeah, and then I think there's like, what can you do? And like ways to support, like honestly, come to Art Walk, like buy art, like,
Well, and it can be like talk to the table,
Yeah.
like sign up for the newsletter, like whatever the action items are. But like, and I think, the constriction of not being able to fundraise, but we can funnel people to the Cottage Street.
That was the whole idea of the
Association.
table
Yeah,
and the website, and
exactly.
so when they go on the website, there's all this
Because like people want
information.
like they want easy packaged information like we want like a soundbite, a quick impactful numbers, and then like simple clear action items like here's the 3 things you can do. You can do this, you can do this, you can do that, and then ask people to commit to that or commit like sign like again it's like stuff that's not going to have direct impact necessarily, but like sign the pledge saying you support art in Easthampton, like whatever that might
would
be,
be nice,
right?
that-
So
yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank
All of
you
us
for
really
being
appreciate your
here.
support, and I'm sorry I have to go. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks for being here, for all you're doing.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
So I really love this idea of art floats Easthampton.
Yeah.
And can it be like art floats and then underneath Easthampton, so it's like you kind of make the connection, you see it like a sentence? It's like art floats Easthampton.
Yeah.
Great. The other thing in having this discussion, it will also be a really fantastic platform to let people know about Porch Fest, to let people know about the Invitational and the upcoming programming that connect to this, like very directly.
So the invitational, like Maud said, there was gonna, like, we're hoping to have a panel discussion, which will bring up some of these, these topics so that it can be.
And Easthampton Futures, we can really just weave all this into that.
So,
Like a panel discussion on like how artists survive in the modern economy,
right?
like
Yeah.
this, these issues.
Yeah, no, there's lots of ways to spin it, yeah. Yeah, so. Wonderful, so we're all in favor of the art floats
Great.
Easthampton, great, awesome.
Are you?
I think it's very tricky. You're gonna have to be very careful about what you say and how you say it. Because if they get wind that it's an anti-Cottage Street,
It's not an
It's
anti.
not.
It really
yeah, you
isn't.
don't think so, but somebody over there might say, you wouldn't be having this if it weren't for the situation over there. And they just completely ignore it because they've already made their, it's done. Cottage Street is a ship that has sailed. Gone. Unfortunately for you guys, it's gone. They've made that clear. What we have, as a municipal department, we have to tread a very fine line. And if the mayor's the mayor's in charge, and if she says certain things are okay, she's got more information about what line to cross and what not. So it just has to be very tricky.
Yeah, this is very, I think the way you just said it, raising public awareness about arts in
That's the
Easthampton,
importance of art.
I think that is where we stand. I think those are, as a good friend of mine says, like, these are our new coordinates, like just where we locate ourselves. And I do think that does become like really central to what we're doing. And bringing that message, you know, like at Cultural Chaos, like having those numbers, like having that message really baked in.
Or actually, I should say, like, two quick thoughts, because I do agree with Ted, and I think it is complicated and it's a fine line. So two thoughts. One is, I think whatever messaging we come up with, or really like what you're, and you know, the group is coming up with, let's make sure we have it reviewed by, you know, whoever. Like, I don't know if we have a city solicitor or not on hand, but like.
We do.
Yeah, so make sure that they have eyes on it, just like say, like, here's the context, here's why we want you to look at it. Make sure, like, and again, it's tricky, you don't want to get, you know, too much legalese, but.
Exactly, once you ask a lawyer, they're gonna say no.
But if, you know, like, it's important to make sure we're not saying anything that's gonna be directly against a private organization. The other thing I think that could help with that is if we're gonna give this Cottage Street tenant group a table, we need to give other people a table, because even
Love that.
if, you know, we're like, they have nothing to do with us, they just popped up, that still opens us up for fire if there is an upset nature or backlash. So if we say, it's not just them, it's the Eastworks people, it's, I don't know what other artist groups are out there, offer other groups to have a
This
table
is
as well.
great.
And then you
district
say, it's
We
open
can have a
to-
cultural district table.
Yeah, and then you can
So-
say, like, you know, this is arts in Easthampton, it's not just this, it's
There's Keystone
broader-
and Bill 180.
Yeah.
Super smart.
And if Riverside has a
Exactly.
problem with it, you say this is a celebration of art in Easthampton. What do you have an issue with art in Easthampton?
Yeah.
What's your issue?
Great, awesome.
And I think of a lot about like the ecosystem of arts in Easthampton. And it's kind of like a way to bring everyone together. Like it just almost like an open invitation. There are so many groups.
Well, in lieu of, you know, in consideration of time, anything else anybody needs to say about this? I think we should move
I have
on.
one comment, short, but is that all right, even though?
Of course.
Okay. So I tend to agree with Ted too. The first lawyer I talked to said the same kind of thing, said, be careful, they're gonna try and see who they can pick off.
Right.
You know, they'll find the troublemakers and pick them off. So she just warned me to be careful about anything legal also.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the good thing that she did say to me is she said between the tenants in Riverside, she said, this is not a legal issue, it's a practical issue. And you need to see if there's a practical solution. And so that's what we tried to work towards, and they did not want to do that, so that's my ending.
And just to be very clear, like I just want to be very clear. And I don't think that people here are implying this, but I just want to be clear because what we're talking about is very delicate and very sensitive. Our wanting to do this event was in response to an artist from Cottage Street's idea about doing an event. And even from her, it was like, this wants to be celebratory. This is not like a protest. This is not anti anybody. Wait. No.
Okay.
But our wanting to do this and to work together, and like I mentioned the fundraiser because that is an issue, and it was not trying to, I just want to make it clear, like, this isn't trying to get away with anything. This was like, how can we all work together in ways that, so I just want to be like, it wasn't, but I like how this conversation has evolved to just be really inclusive about bringing all the different players in. Right, yeah.
Invite Riverside. No, I mean, you should.
I mean,
Sure.
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
They're a big sponsor of Cultural Chaos, right?
Yeah, and
So-
they're, or a program partner, they're also, like, we have a show of Riverside artists in our
I mean, like,
gallery.
if you're worried, like, that is a great way to be like, but you're part of it. Why would, this isn't a protest against you, you're invited to it. I mean,
I love that.
something to think about. You know, like, one of the things we talked, or that was brought up at that community meeting was, I forget her name, the woman who has the stained glass studio, and she had talked about how there's been, like, a long-term, you know, sort of collaboration. Could we, and wasn't there just the show of the Riverside artists, like,
in ECA right now.
yeah, so like, can we, like,
Yeah.
play on that in some way, you know, like, I don't know.
Yeah. All right, great. So we are gonna just continue to work on that. But we have another wonderful event, Porch Fest. Can you give us a little update on that?
So we haven't talked since we had that meeting, right? So Pascalina, Felicia, and myself met at our house a month ago, like several weeks
It
ago.
was a month ago, yeah.
Yeah, to kind of like talk about this Porch Fest and the future of Porch Fest. And we kind of, basically we're getting to a point where we feel like Porch Fest might be better off breaking away from ECA, and just so that we can go out and like fundraise and just do everything like independently. So I think we want to do that, but next year, because at this point it's just like, October is coming fast, and we just want to kind of like do Porch Fest this year once more under the guise of ECA, and then next year fundraise and kind of like break away. So that was the big thing. Separately, we met with Rusty, one of our neighbors, who was both a host and a performer last year, and he's going to host and perform again this year, because we kind of wanted to get like his perspective as a host and a performer about these changes, and about specifically like a pay model and how we would do that. We were talking about with you, and like what we would do in the future would be hopefully fundraise and get like a pot of money, and then that would go out to the performers, but also raise money like through like a crowdfunding thing. Like we even came up with like tip to improve Porch Fest. So people would leave tips either before or during Porch Fest, and all that money together would just be divided evenly among all the performers. So we wouldn't know how much anyone would get until kind of afterwards, but that would be kind of like the funding model, or how people would get paid moving forward. And specifically, we've been kind of getting more active on our Instagram, and we have 20 flyers laminated and printed out, but we need to actually put them up. We're going to put them up. So we have 11 locations signed up, I believe.
Roughly, yeah.
But some of them are not like, they're all by themselves.
Yeah, so just like a quick update on the location. So I made a map of it last week. So we have, it's like 10 or 11 locations. 5 or 6 of them are in New City. Some of them are repeats again, and there's a couple new ones. Super walkable, some of the same places that were really well attended last year. The other 5 or so locations are just unfortunately all over and nowhere near each other. So my hope is that we can continue to advertise and solicit more people to sign up to be hosts in the next couple weeks, because it would be great, because we had just talked about having more locations than just New City, but it has to be walkable. And so if one's over in the Plains and one's over here, it doesn't make sense to just have those folks be like outliers. So what we're going to be doing is reach out to each of the 5 people who are not near each other and ask those hosts or potential hosts to see if they have neighbors who they could solicit and ask to be part of this, because that would be the easiest thing to do. And if not, I think then just keeping it in New City again for this year is probably the way to go forward for that. So.
Yeah, I would think that you need to have like a map versus just random, so, yeah.
Is the Dragon House one of them?
No.
And,
Or any from the Cottage Street Cultural District, or near or walkable to?
No.
Interesting.
now, would those people, the outliers that you're talking about, if you didn't have the connection, would they just not do it this year? And then,
Yeah, it would be the same like we did last year. We had a couple people sign up last year to host, and they just were not like again, like one person was on the plains, one person was down East Street, not walkable. So it's like very similar in that sense, but as opposed to last year where we were just focusing on New City, this year we were hoping to have it be a bit broader if possible. So, you know, we have, I want to say, I don't remember exactly, but like between 20 and 30 performers have signed up. And so, you know, again, hoping to get a couple more folks, just advertise that a bit more too.
I wanted to ask
so.
when a deadline would be.
Did we talk about that? It's gotta be coming up soon. Yeah.
But what,
Yeah, we haven't formalized it because we were waiting for the website to be updated so we could actually advertise it.
yeah, and that's all been updated.
Right, yeah. So
But I
that's
wanted
just
to
been the
ask
last
you
week or two.
when you would like the deadline to be, as far as like getting more interest, like.
Like September 1st or 5th at the latest, because that would give us a month.
Okay, let's say September 1st.
Are any of the houses that are outliers that signed up over in my neighborhood? Because we would sign up.
I don't think so, no.
You know that like we're at the other end of Cottage where it splits into a 5-point? Like there's Stone Path Lane, which scoots by the church, that little neighborhood back there.
So there's
I'll
one
actually-
that's
I'll pull it up
by
right now so I can tell
Angel's
you.
Attic. And then we have a friend who we haven't really talked to, but I think he wanted to do it last year, who is on Everett Street right on this side of the cemetery. So I do think there's like a few in that like general area, and that's where we want to kind of like try to get a few
So-
more.
I'm so sorry. It's like no one will be able to see this, but basically, so this is the map that I created. The green clusters are New City. This is New City over here, and that's our house. Just that's how the map works. We're right here, and then the orange ones are where the locations are.
We're really close to that one right there.
Over
Is that
here.
our neighbor Maggie and Jessica
I don't know.
who signed up there? Those are our neighbors. So we could,
Okay.
and we know the people on the corner right there. They're musicians.
Yeah, so I mean, like, if you want to share
Run Butter
spread the
Street.
word, and I think the best thing is just have people sign up through the link that's on the website, because then they go into the system, and then we can start to like, I can map it out and then have a better sense of where people are, so.
Yeah, there's a few different people in bands in that little neighborhood who are
Yeah, or even like if you know that's a good neighborhood, like because I know we're gonna want to chat about like what we did last year was we printed flyers and we actually went door to door and we put them in everyone's locations in the New City neighborhood. We've just been out of commission the last week because we both got COVID, so we're just now getting back into it. So we're a little bit behind, but you know, if we know that's like a good neighborhood, we could, you know, drop flyers off and have you guys spread the word, or you know, you mentioned our neighbor Rusty, like we're trying to solicit, like there are folks who are willing to volunteer and help out with stuff like this. So if we were to say, here's, you know, 100 flyers, put them on the doors in this neighborhood, I think that's an easy ask as long as we know like where to target, so.
We had a block party last summer and we had like 6 core organizers for a block.
That'd be awesome.
I'm sure we could activate that network again.
Yeah, that'd be
So,
great.
and I'll just say, so it's Art Walk that night. It's October 5th, so Porch Fest is from 1 to 5, and then Art Walk's from 4 to 7. So it's gonna spill in. And if it could end up, like if it could start in New City and then make its way over to that neck of the woods, and then people will be closer to kind of like and come, you know, Art Walk is
Yeah, we can, because we can
and-
certainly plan it out as long
Yeah.
as we, like, the performers I'm not worried about. It's like the locations has always been the bigger, you know, issue. So like the good news is no matter what, we have quorum of a sorts in New City, and it's just about like, can we find somewhere else to like bring people to essentially, so.
So so we all met and we had talked about, does it make sense for ECA to do this? Does it make sense for you all to just like do your thing and not be so, you know, restricted by ECA's capacity and like requirements and all of that? And so I had understood when we met that it was too soon this year and like, let's just move forward. And then I thought it was gonna be like a reassessment. So I just wanna like, so it sounds like you all have decided that moving forward,
that's what you would like
Happy
to
to
do?
reassess, but that's not the understanding I had from your conversation. So if there was a misunderstanding, we
yeah.
can chat about it.
I
But
just
it
thought,
seemed
okay.
like you were pretty clear that you wanted us to break it off. So
I did
we had
not
said,
feel that way.
because we had said that it was too late to fundraise this year because we didn't have enough time. And we were worried about the budgeting. So
Yeah.
if you didn't mean it that way,
I
I'm more than
understood that
happy
we
to
were gonna
reassess,
just like
but-
go forward. I was feeling like I didn't want ECA to be standing in the way of something being the funding stuff and all of that. So I just wanted to clarify and ask because I was like, oh, okay, wow. Yeah,
No, we
so,
did.
If ECA can function as an incubator for,
Yeah. I think
that's
it's great.
exactly-
Right,
That's
yeah.
exactly.
I mean,
right.
I don't
We
feel
should
like
we should
oh,
debrief no matter
Yeah,
what.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
happy to
Okay.
have a and I think it should be like a group discussion because
Absolutely.
it's not just the three of us, obviously.
Absolutely.
But I definitely am happy to see where it evolves to. But
Cool.
yeah,
Great.
And then, so I just wanted to then make sure, because you guys are taking the lead on a lot of these things. So like for the flyers, is Easthampton City Arts a part of that flyer? Like either with a logo or a presents or?
we just used the same exact flyers last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And I updated the Facebook event page, so it just incorporated some of our language.
Yeah, and I think we have, I want to say last time I looked, 400 people expressed
Yeah.
interest on the Facebook event page, which is great. So
Yeah, I think last year it was like one something. So already there's
Yeah,
more
and
interest.
again, I think the biggest thing is just like everything else, public awareness, especially around getting people to sign up because I think we just haven't had a lot of signups for host locations. But what happened last year is the same exact thing was the case. And then once we started flyering, that really helped a lot. So, like I said, we're a little bit behind on that, but we should be able to get that going. And then I think we still have time to get some more signups on that front.
Yeah.
So.
Great.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, we're just a time check, everybody. It's almost 6:30. We've got still a lot on our agenda. Should we put the future programming for the next agenda? And
I think
kind of-
so. That's all.
I think this is just too much
That's
to really.
all.
And it's something that's not happening right away. So.
And they're all things that require quite a bit of discussion.
Yeah, that's why I'm
So,
saying. I think
that's
so.
smart.
Would love to get an update from ECC from you, Alicia, before we end, and then let's put the future programming on the next agenda because
I think
I think
that's
it's
good.
a little more conversation needs to be had on that. Is that okay with everybody?
That sounds
Okay,
great.
great.
Yeah, I'll keep it short and sweet. We had a meeting a few weeks ago for ECC. So where we're at right now is I think what we're going to do is ECA has generously offered space to have a community meeting. The timing just is not really going to work out for that. And I chatted with our MCC contact. We don't have to have a community meeting. So the survey to get priorities will suffice. So we're fine on that front. We will be finalizing our local priorities next week at our next ECC meeting, and then that gets submitted by the end of this month. So then in September, the next round for next year opens up, and I think what we would love to do is maybe re-engage with ECA to use that space to have a community meeting to basically, like we did, I think the last council did this last year where it was basically, do you need help signing up? Help us, we can talk you through it, answer questions, that kind of thing. So we'll be advertising that in early September when the new round shows up. As far as all the 2024 grantees, I believe everyone who got their paperwork in has been paid. Now, not everyone has gotten their paperwork in, but it is not on us at this point. It is on just maybe, I think, 2 people who don't know how to print on their paper. I don't know. Anyway, it's most people have gotten, almost everyone's gotten paid. And we still have some stuff that's happening, so that's still in the works, and that's kind of chugging forward. And anything else? I'm just trying to think if there's anything else that is of note. You may know this or not, but we did put out a brief statement on our Facebook page for Easthampton Cultural Council in support of the Cottage Street artists as well.
Okay.
So we did put that out on the Facebook. So just basically similar to what ECA and the city have done, sharing that we support arts in Easthampton and support the artists. So we did put that out as well. I think that's the highlights of ECC stuff, so.
Two things I'll add. I don't know if you've spoken to Nancy.
Oh, yes, I did speak to Nancy, yes.
Yeah, and just like a little update, because I think it's really good. Nancy came in, she had some questions last week. I happened to be in the office. We went through all the questions, and there was one thing she wanted to know, and I said, let's just go triple check upstairs with the city auditor, like how much money is, it's like we get ledger reports printed, but there's always like a 3-week window that hasn't been reconciled. So if you've spent money in those 3 weeks, it won't reflect. It's like, anyway. So I always check to make sure. I just ask and they look it up. And so I said, I know she's in there. Let's just go do that. And I didn't realize they hadn't met. So they met and like we had this great conversation. But then all the stuff got revealed as far as reporting and this and that. So I'm just saying there's like a lot more clarity. I never knew that the auditor's office did that report every year.
Yeah, news to me as well.
Yeah, so like I'm like, if we hadn't just come up, we never would know. Like, so I just felt really good because this has been a big transition for you all with like 9 new members or whatever. And so it's like, I feel like all the little, pieces are getting tended to. In the strange ways they are. So I felt really good about that. And then the other thing I just wanted to say, so once upon a time when ECA and ECC were more intrinsically related, I would be the person to do that, like here's what to think about when you apply, blah, blah, blah. Rachel and I used to do it together. One thing that was always a part of that, which you can or cannot reintroduce, I know it has not been part of it, but we used to talk about events taking place in the city that they could consider with their applications. So like, I would show, like ECA knows its calendar of events for 2025. There's Poetry Month, there's Cultural Chaos, there's this, there's that. And I would have ECC applicants write to me to say, I'm interested in performing at Cultural Chaos. Would that, like before their application in October. So like, would that be an option? And I'd be like, that'd be awesome. It's great for us. They're getting paid from the state. They're offering something new. It just adds, richness to it all. And not every artist is going to want that kind of platform, but some would love that kind of platform. We had bands performing on stage, it could be during Art Walk, like all the things we do. And it's not just us anymore. Like, right? City space, like there's all these venues. So I just think as part of that, to share resources, they have to get permission first. That's important. But I kind of miss that integration in that way.
I think we did, I was part of that little, like anybody, I think we did try to convey that to some degree that they could.
This year.
Yeah, this past year, yeah.
Yeah, this
So-
year but I just mean for the past few years. So I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I think Keep Art Afloat September 20th would be a great event to, talk about the new application and the grants available and also like bring
Totally,
everyone
absolutely, yeah.
together.
Maybe, so ECC should have a table.
Totally.
We can definitely have a table. It's sitting in our milk house.
All right, great.
This is great. I love this event.
Yeah. All right, everybody, thank you for coming. It's been a nice and robust meeting. We will talk about the future programming next meeting. That's great. Next month. And and in the meantime, stay tuned.
Thank you, everybody.
Tracy, do you mind if I make a comment about Art Walk?
Sure.
You know, when you're saying that the attendance was lower at the mill buildings, when they used to do a bus around town. And I know for us, like the last Art Walk, we drove up and then we drove over here, but we didn't drive to the mill. But if there would have been a bus at ECA Gallery, we probably would have taken it to the mill. Just a thought. I don't know if that's even possible again, but, and I think.
Yeah, I know it gets tricky, it
I
gets a
didn't know
little.
there was ever a bus. I know there's been
was.
talk about a bus.
There was a performing bus, and there might have been a poetry bus, but there was someone who was performing
remember
as they
this?
were driving.
Not at all.
I mean,
Yeah.
Was it like an every time thing or like a one time?
It might have
thing?
been a one time. And I think there was someone who was a bus driver and he donated his time in the
Yeah.
bus. And it might have been, 2010, 2011, so it might have been way, way back. But it was a really nice experience.
Art Walk was not always an ECA program. It was started by artists. So maybe, I mean, I don't know, but yeah.
that
We've talked about a bus. Keystone has a little bus. We've talked.
this was
I will just say, and
It's
I'm not
tricky.
meaning to sound like it gets so complicated. The
I
minute you have
understand.
driver, it's very expensive.
Okay.
And the timing and it gets real. We have talked about a bus, and I know the Economic Development Company Corporation was talking about a bus to different things, and it does get very,
Yeah, I understand.
very tricky,
Yeah.
and liability insurance, all sorts of this stuff.
Yeah.
But yes, I it's also good to hear though, just your feedback of where you went and where you didn't go, because it's not uncommon.
It's just an extra step, that was all.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for everything.
Yeah, thanks for
Thank you
coming.
for being here and
Yeah.
for sticking it out with us.
Oh, yeah, I really was curious what you were up to. So actually, the future things sound interesting, so I may be back.
Come back next month.
Yeah, that's what I'd like to know.
Great,
Thank
awesome.
you.
Thank you.
Is our next meeting on September 2nd?
Oh,
I don't think it is.
on the agenda, I put September 9th because the 2nd is Labor Day. So I put on the 2nd, and I meant to, thank you for catching that. I wanted to circle
Can
back with
people
everybody, and can everybody
Make
do
it
the
on the
9th?
9th?
so.
Yeah, I think so.
Great.
Adding it right now.
Okay, perfect.
You too.
All right.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.